Hello, I come to you today with an art assignment project. This is the 13th art assignment and it's called the Sorted Books one, and since I'm a book girl, I had to cut myself a slice of that book pie. I'm not really abiding by the rules because that's just how I roll, but I'm just going to tell you the rules anyway. So the first rule is that you're going to have to find a person that you know and that you want to get to know a little bit more. Then the second rule is to look at their library, and then the third rule is to try to make 3 stacks of books illustrating that person. For my own art assignment, I really wanted to develop a portrait of Malcolm X. And in doing so, I'm going to use the books that I brought with me to grad school. So there really isn't very many, but you know, I'm still going to try and do it anyway. Before I go and show you the stacks, I'm going to give you a brief biography of Malcolm X so you sort of have more of an understanding of what these stacks of books mean. So Malcolm X was born May 19th, 1925 in Omaha, Nebraska. Growing up, he had a pretty insane childhood. I mean, he had a lot of run-ins with the Ku Klux Klan, which ended in his house getting broken into and buildings getting turned into fire. Later on in Malcolm's life, a teacher once asked him what he wanted to be when he grew up. To that, he said that he wanted to be a lawyer. But then the teacher was all like, shouldn't you be thinking of something more realistic? I mean, carpentry seems like more of a job with your standing in life. That wasn't exactly what the teacher said, but you sort of get the drift. As a result, Malcolm X dropped out of high school and he went to live with his sister. There he worked as a shoe shiner, he worked in a kitchen, and eventually he became a drug dealer. Through his drug dealing, he lived a pretty lavish lifestyle up until the point he was arrested and charged for larceny, and he had to serve 10 years in jail. The upside of him being incarcerated for 10 years, he was able to read the entire time. He basically made up for his missed opportunities at school and then some. Also during his incarceration, he devoted his life to the Nation of Islam, and he also changed his last name to X. The X is basically a representation. It's a representation of how America had taken these people from this place and just stripped them of their traditions, of their homes, and of their names. So the X represents the last name that Malcolm could have had if his ancestors were not uprooted from their own homes. So after he was freed, he became more involved in the Nation of Islam, and he also worked very closely with the leader who was Elijah Muhammad. During this time, he worked for a Nation of Islam, he was an advocator, a leader, and he oftentimes preached that violence was a form of the civil rights movement. Somewhere down the line, Malcolm X became really disillusioned by Elijah Muhammad. Specifically, Muhammad proved himself to be a hypocrite, as he had a lot of illegitimate children with other women and just was not living the total Nation of Islam life. Also during that time, their ideologies started to clash. As a result, Malcolm X decided to take a pilgrimage all over Africa. During this pilgrimage, he started to rethink his own ideologies about violence and about the civil rights movement as a whole. He concluded that maybe America was the one place and the one country that can have a revolution that is peaceful. So he came back to America with this idea in his head that he was going to share this new ideology, and right when he was going to step on stage and just share his thoughts, he was assassinated by members of the Nation of Islam. And for a really long time, people pegged him for the weird radical guy who just wanted violence as an answer to everything. But then people later realized that he became a changed man after his pilgrimage and that he is somewhat of a hero. So I created 3 book stacks in order to illustrate a portrait of Malcolm X, and I decided to focus on 3 areas of life where he had changed and he became a different person as a result. The first stack that I created represents the moment in time when his teacher told him to be more realistic about his job and career choices. So this is what I came up with, and that says, "The unchangeable spots of leopards drown the realm of possibilities." And then the second point in time that I wanted to represent was when he was incarcerated and he decided to change his name to X. And it says, "Invisible man, scroll, the namesake." I particularly like that one because you could read it multiple ways, because namesake basically means name that belongs to another person or very similar to another person. So he could be crossing out his namesake or creating a new namesake, which is the X, that will, I guess, represent the namesake that he wished he had. Sorry, I'm like a total English major nerd. And the last one is kind of short because I don't have a lot of books here, but I made do with what I had. And this is supposed to represent after his pilgrimage where he changed his mind about violence as an answer to the civil rights movement. Half a life in cold blood. So I chose to do a portrait of Malcolm X for multiple reasons. And the first reason is that I had just read One Crazy Summer by Rita Williams Garcia, and I was totally inspired by the whole setting of this novel. And the setting is during 1968, where the Black Panthers and the civil rights movement were just really heated up. Also, I just really found Malcolm X to be really fascinating and admirable, despite the fact that he lived a lot of his life with hate and with violence. It's that epiphany towards the end of his life that changed his inner mechanics and him as a person that I found really beautiful and really heroic. Malcolm X reminds us that we're all really complex and hard, and we can't really make a conclusion about any one person. Despite this limitation, we should try the best we can to create portraits of people, things, and ideas that we find beautiful and admirable and good. So we really hope you liked that art assignment that I did. This is the first one I've ever done, and I thought it was extremely fun. And I recommend that you do it too if you haven't already. I will leave the link below for the art assignment for you to reference off of. That's all I have to say, so bye. So those are all the books that I wanted to talk about today that are diverse and young adult reads that I think need more attention.